Hello, I'm retired Battalion Chief Larry Cockman from the Greensboro, North Carolina Fire Department History Book Committee. We're here today at the Greensboro Historical Museum. I'm standing in front of the General Green, the first steam pumper, or as they called it back then, the steamer. Today, December 9th, 2019, we are starting a new tradition of recording and preserving the heritage and culture of our retirees. Our retirees have contributed so much to the success of our great fire department. Their stories retire with them and are sometimes gone forever when they pass away. They will share their emergency calls that will always be a part of their memories forever. So sit back and listen as they carry us through their journey in the Greensboro Fire Department.
Okay, my name is Chuck Smith. I'm 70 years old. I spent 32 years on the fire department, and my rank was captain at retirement.
Okay.
I grew up in a little community called McLeansville. I grew up on a tobacco farm, 2 brothers, 2 sisters, and that was my life. And it was really not a great life as far as the working, but you know, it turned out well. I was with my family. I had 2 great parents. All right, there was nobody in my family in the fire department when I came on. Later, I had a nephew, Mike Smith. He came on. And I got, by marriage, 2 nephews, Matt and Mark Smith, that are on the fire department now. Okay, I almost didn't become a fireman. I applied to the Greensboro Fire Department, the Greensboro Police Department, and went up there, took all their tests. Lieutenant Steele, he was over personnel at that time, and I talked to him, and I had a job with him, and Vietnam was going on at that time. I didn't want to go into the military, so all of a sudden I had a chance to get in the National Guard, and I talked to him about it, and he said, you don't want to get in the National Guard. He said, they won't draft you off the police department. So I got to think about it, and I said, well, if I don't like the police department, I know I'm going to have to go to Vietnam, because Ms. Kirkman had already told me I was leaving in May to go be examined for the draft. So I told him that, and he said, well, if you want to go, he said, call me about a month before you get out, and I'll have a job waiting on you. So I didn't call him when I got out. I came back, and I called him a few weeks after I got out. I'd already gone to work at AMP Incorporated at that time. And I called him, and he said, I want you to make sure this is what you want to do, because it's going to cost a bunch of money to do the background research. So I said, yes, is what I want to do. So when it came time, he told me, he says, you got a job. And I said, well, I've kind of changed my mind. I don't think I want to do it. And next thing I heard was clink. It wasn't no goodbye, it wasn't anything. And I had come back from basic training, and I was an MP, went through MP school. And one of the guys from Greensboro that went through MP school with me was Johnny Freeman. And so he got on the police department. And he told me, he said, when he went up for his interview, Lieutenant Steele asked him, he said, you know a little SOB by the name of Lonnie Smith? So I worked at AMP a few more months, then I applied for I talked to you were on the fire department. I talked to Bobby Taylor, who lived in my community, and really you 2 are the reason that I became a fireman. Okay, first thing I had to do was go out to the training center, took a written test. Passed it, they did a physical agility test, which, you know, all of it was really easy. There was nothing to any of it. I already been through basic training and everything. I was in good shape.
Right. Yeah.
My starting salary in the fire department was $513 a month.
Okay.
Okay, my training class consisted of 6 people. And training back then it was supposed to last 6 weeks. Charlie Reed and I were in the National Guard. Training started July the 1st, and we were supposed to go to summer camp August 5th. So talked to Chief Osborne, and he said, well, y'all coming back out here during the next training class. So it started out with 6 people. When it got time to do rope sliding and pump here one quit and they fired one, so it was 4 of us. It was myself, Charlie Reed, Mike Henley, and Gary Watson. So the bad part about training while we were there was only 4, and by the time you could slide rope, before you could get back up to the window, it was time to go again. But when training, the 6 weeks never happened. It's 4 of us, so we did it in like 4 weeks. Did everything that you did, 6 weeks. We did it in 4. I went to Catawba for a couple of years, so training was really a breeze. The hydraulics, all that, did really well in the classroom. The sliding rope, pump here, and all that. Probably the only thing that stands out was the 6 weeks that we were supposed to go through training, and Chief Osborne told us that we were going to come back in the next class and finish up. It didn't really turn out that way. That Charlie and I, the whole class, made it through it in 4 weeks. I didn't really feel that way until I got out on the line and went on and had some calls where you're saving people's lives, saving property. That's when I really felt it. It was more of a job, in training. It was hard work. Okay, my first station was Old Central Station. I was assigned to Engine 1. Randall Simpson was my captain. Woody Parrish and Bobby Strong on the back of the truck. Tommy Marson was driver. And Randall was a really good captain. I don't remember the first day I was there. He took me out on the truck floor. We went all over Engine 1, every compartment. And he said, you're going to have to know everything that's in here and how to use it. And so, every day, go over it. He was a good captain. Well, your brother was there, Raymond was there, Roger Collis, Jim Parker, Bob Oakley. I already told you who was on Engine 1. I can't remember. Paul Brown was captain on Engine 2. Ronnie Osborne was a captain up there then. Yep. Central Station was a great place to work. I had more fun at that station, enjoyed working there, probably more than any station I was at, although I liked every station I went to. After a while you get to it. But it was like at least 18 people there every day that was assigned on each shift. In the afternoons, after 5 o'clock, you'd be playing volleyball, you'd be playing basketball, ping pong, whatever. It was just a great bunch of guys. And you had a lot of fires too. Back then, downtown, we had some big fires downtown. Well, everybody calls me Chuck, and that is a nickname. Okay, Bobby Strong, you know him. He was a big, bulky, thick guy, and he did tree work on his days off. Okay, on that shift, Woody Parrish, Raymond Cockman, Roger Collis, they all hung together. And Bobby would, because he did tree work, he'd go to bed like at 7 o'clock at night. Well, they were always waking him up. About 11 o'clock, he'd go in there and shake him, wake him up. Well, this one particular night, Woody went in there and he yanked the covers off of Bobby and ripped his shorts down and started just spanking him on his butt. Well, Bobby, he whirled around and ended up down the floor, and he got Woody. Woody was begging him to turn him loose. So Roger, Raymond, they come over and Bobby was in the floor. They would kick him and say, "Turn him loose, Bobby." He'd clamp down on Woody. Woody would, "Y'all leave him alone. Leave him alone." There was always something like that going on at Old Central. There's a lot of pranks. When I first went on, every day we cooked, took turns. I loved it. I used to hate to take a day of vacation. That's how much I love going to work at Old Central. I was not a good cook when I went there, but I had good captains that they actually taught me how to cook. And I got to where I was a pretty good cook. My bet, you could ask Richard Miles this, he always begged me to fix this the day it was my turn to cook. I'd fix a roast, cream potatoes, and like green beans, whatever with it. But the roast, it would just melt, so tender. Well, I think anytime you do anything together, you become closer. But you know, most of the time now you see them in restaurants eating out. Well, some of the advantages of a cubicle, I could see that, where you know, you'd have privacy. If you wanted to study, whatever, you could do that. The disadvantage of it is probably you're segregated even more from each other. Plus now, when we came along during training and all that, there was no cell phones. Now everybody's got a cell phone, everybody's on their cell phone, and it's, you know, it just takes away from being together, being closer. One other little story was, I can remember Rick Travers putting black powder underneath Jimmy Eller's bed and lighting that thing up at Old Central, you know, and the flames just come up just like that. Or Jimmy never moved, he just laid there. I don't know if that was so good though, as far as, yeah, I know it has. Today's firefighter, they spend a lot of time on their cell phone texting and all that. They're just not as, it's not as close. And I've heard other people, even the firemen, say that. It's different. Well, one thing, you know, it's part of the history of the fire department, the older guys like us now. And, you know, and you can pass on stories to these young guys that they're never going to know it unless we do, you know, visit and tell them about it. You know, a lot of times now, I'm sure that, you know, they have a lot of things going on, and they probably don't really want to spend a lot of time with the older guys. But, you know, firefighting, you know, during our era, everybody, it was close. You make friends that are going to last a lifetime. The biggest reason, you know, people in the future are going to know what we did, what we went through, how we felt about things, and even our families. They're going to get to see generations from now how it was, how we felt about it. You know, I love being on the fire department. If I had my life to do over, I'd be a fireman. You know, you never, just like Chief Powell told me when I came to work, the first day I came to work, he said, son, you're never going to get rich being a fireman, but you will make a living. And he also told me, he said, by the time you get ready to retire, he said, it'll be down to 20 years. Never came down a day in 32 years. You know, if you think about it, what we do, what we did, you know, you go on a call, a house fire, apartment fire, this is everything these people have is in there. And if what you save of it, they're appreciative of it. My first call was on engine 1, and it was a car fire. I didn't have a house fire till I went to Station 9 after I got out of training. It was, while I was at Station 9, it was a fire in the basement. It was hot. It was a hot fire and smoke, full of smoke. I'd already gone through training though, and everybody was out of the house when we got there. And, you know, we went down in the basement and knocked it out. Which I'm on a lot of calls did that. You know, a lot of the department, the years I was there, I had some great crews while I was captain. Station 7, Mike Brown, Wayne Welch, Ray Cook. I put Wayne Welch against anybody. getting to a fire and putting it out. On Arlie and Brad Cox, Rick Gentry, I mean, I had some good crews. Well, I was driver on engine 2 when they put the squads in, which is probably what, 77, 78, somewhere along in there. And it just steadily picked up as the years went by, the medical calls. I know you went on the squad. I can remember talking to Woody about it when we were at Old Central Station about the squad, going on the squad or not going on the squad, and we decided we were just going to stay driving. I was driving on engine 2.
Okay.
That's one of the biggest memories I have is a call we went on when I was at Station 9. We went on 1050. A van came across the center of the line on West Ridge Road and hit a little Honda Civic head on. And there was a nurse in the front seat. We had to, when we got there, we had to cut her out of the car. And while we were doing it, she actually stopped breathing. We started CPR on her. And you know, we had to do everything. Flap it, get the doors open, prise the dash and all away from her. And when we were getting her out, her leg was just hanging by the skin down here where it was broke so bad. But we did get her back breathing while she was in the car, and she survived it. But she was never going to go back to work. And about 2 months later, her husband brought her by the station, and she was in a wheelchair, and she came by to thank us for all that we did for her. You know, the gratification you get from that, I mean, you can't buy that anywhere. That's one of the reasons I love being a fireman.
That's good.
Well, while I was at Old Central Station, even before I made captain, we had a lot of big fires downtown where, you know, it'd be all night down there. And a lot of times the bulldozer was there the next morning, you know, to clear the building. Now, there were old buildings back then, back in the early 70s. I was on the A1 Reynolds fire where I did get my hand burned. And I was out of work. I was on light duty from February the 15th till May 1st. Well, O'Brien and I, we had took Rick, Jeff Souther, and myself and O'Brien had taken a 2.5 up on the second floor. And I had taken my glove off. I couldn't get out on my radio, and I wanted to make sure I was on F3. And Rick and Jeff, they had run out of air, and O'Brien and I were still up there. And I flashed. I mean, it just came right up the stairwell, went right over us, and right on down through the building. And really, there was no windows in that building. And you know, I thought the whole building was just engulfed, but the fire just went right on down, and just, you know, we actually could walk out of the building when it was over with. I tell you, I didn't really think I was going to get out of there. And I think the good Lord, I think that's a reason that I did get out of there. You know, they say you see your life flash before your eyes. It's true. While I was up there, I did. I didn't think I was going to get out. 9/11, I came home from work, and I was actually fixing some breakfast. And one of the guys at the station called me and said, "You watching TV?" I said, "No." So I turned it on, and the first plane had already hit the first tower. So I started watching it, and then the second plane hit. And then, you know, one of them started crumbling, and I knew right then there was going to be a lot of firemen that were not going to get out of that building. It was almost 3,000 people killed in that building. 343 firemen did not get out. I tell you, that was a terrible day, you know, knowing that so many of them were going to die. And there's a little girl that, I work down at Elon my days off. There's a little girl that rides my bus. Her dad was a firefighter in New York City, and he's retired now. He happened to be off on 9/11. But when it all happened, he went on and went in and went to work. Well, she was telling me that, you know, he had breathing problems after that. And they insured him for so many years. And she told me this year, but it was going to run out unless they voted on it and approved that they were going to extend the medical part of it, and they did do that, where he's got coverage and all that for it. A lot of lives were lost right there in that building. It was terrible. You know, before they really thought all we did was play checkers and stuff like that, and you could just tell the difference. I remember people came by the station. They brought pies by there and left them after 9/11 for us. My mentors were Jack Coble, number one. I loved that man. He was a man's man. If you were right, you could do no wrong, and he would back you to the hill. If you were wrong, you'd hear that, and he would gnaw you out. But he was a good man. Eli Ritter, I had him for a captain, and he was a great captain. Arnold Marion, all those guys were my mentors. That's firemen. Well, there was always changes. And we went through a ton of changes during our career there. But I can remember Eli Ritter then, he was my captain. You know, when like a general order would come out and there was a little change or something, I can remember some of the guys, they would just go into a rage, you know, be mad about it and all that. I can remember him telling me then, way back then, he said, you know, Chuck, usually when change comes out, he said in a few months everything goes back just like it was. A lot of times it did. But you know, all the equipment got a whole lot better for us. You remember your first helmet? I still got mine. That thing was like something you buy at Walmart, you know, yeah. It's just plastic. And I tell you, the Chief Teeters, he improved the equipment and everything a lot while he was there. Well, I know that in my career, I had, just on house fires and apartment fires, I had 13 fatalities during those 32 years. But the call where we saved the woman's life in that 1050, that's the most memorable thing for me. You know, we got life-saving medals for that. And, you know, one time, guy, we went on him. I mean, he did CPR on him and brought him back. He worked for a distributorship of fishing stuff. He came by the station and left baskets of fishing stuff for us and thanked us. I had 13 fatalities in 32 years on house fires and apartment fires. Now, that's not counting 1050s and stuff like that. And I know some guys, like I remember when UNCG apartment, they set that apartment on fire, and I think a bunch of people died in that, and I wouldn't own anything like that, which they probably had a lot more fatalities than I did. Well, the first thing you got to do, you know, God, for me, he's been in my life. I accepted Christ, and that's probably the biggest thing that has helped me all through those years. Well, it's not easy. You know, like Ed Sawyer, I worked with him for years. He got killed almost as soon as he retired. Robert Atkins, I worked with him for years. He got cancer. I think God, again, has to give you strength to get through those things. And, you know, when I first came there on a fire call, you'd go out on the call, come back, and you'd write it in a logbook. About 73, somewhere along in there, we went to a UFRS program, which they hired Jim Wilson. He came in and set that up. He didn't stay long after that. Remember, he went to prison.
Oh, yeah.
And then later on, we went to the computer, doing our calls on the computer. And so there was a lot of changes. The radio system changed, the megahertz. The biggest change, though, was the equipment got so much better. Trucks, everything. You know, when we came on, a lot of trucks, they didn't even have a roof on them, no top. My military service, I had already gone through basic training when I came on, and I was in the National Guard. So 1 weekend a month, I had to drill. And I went and talked to my first sergeant to see if I could make my drill up during the week if I was at the fire station. Words out of his mouth was, well, that's going to be a problem for you your whole career here, so no. And you were in a maintenance company in Winston-Salem, and so you and I went up there, and they gave me the paperwork and everything. I was going to transfer up there. Came back, gave them to my first sergeant, and he turned it down. He wouldn't even let me transfer. So I had been on a garage fire when I was at Old Central Station. You remember Richardson Pryor? He was a representative. I wrote him a letter and told him, I'm sure you realize the importance of the firefighter because of the garage fire that I came on at your house. And I told him my problem, that my unit I was in, they would not let me off for drills. So I got a letter from one of his assistants saying that they had contacted the Adjutant General in Raleigh and that he would be in contact with me. So he sent me a letter saying that, if I still wanted to transfer, to do the paperwork and all that. So I did. Went and got the paperwork, brought it back, and they next thing I knew, they had turned it down again. So one morning I had just got fed up with it. So I just got dressed. I went to Raleigh and I found him. His name was Colonel Donovan. And so he came into the office there, and I told him who I was and why I was there, and he said, let me go get the paperwork. He said, you'll know as much about it as I do. So he went and got the paperwork, and I read it, and they said that I only live like maybe 5 or 6 miles from the armory here, and in Winston-Salem, it was like 20 or 30 miles away. He said, he's getting ready to make sergeant, and he said, we'll let him off for drills. So, make a long story short, he said, I didn't know you were unhappy with the unit that you're in. He said, if you're unhappy, he said, I'll let you transfer. But I said, well, suppose I go back and they won't let me off drills. He said, well, you just give me a call. And he said, if you do have any problems, I appreciate you calling me instead of writing Pryor anymore. So I went back over there, never had another problem.
All right.
My mom was my biggest inspiration. I can still see her sitting right now in the chair beside the window reading her Bible. And that's one of the biggest reasons that I accepted Christ. Christ is in my life. And I want that for my kids and grandkids too. I want them to have a relationship with God. It's important to me. Well, I have back issues. I got 2 bulging discs in my lower back. I got a bone spur. I got 2 bulging discs in my neck and bone spurs. And the first time I hurt my back was on a fire. Big house on Holden Road over there up in the attic. And I still have back problems. I couldn't do it anymore. Firefighting is a young man's game. I couldn't do it a long time ago though. I mean, there comes a time you got to move over and make room. Yeah. It's a young man's game.
Yeah.
This is one of the big things I tell them, that the calls they go on, the lives that they save, there's nothing more rewarding or gratifying than that right there. Like I said, if I had my life to do over, I'd be a fireman again. I'd want them to remember, to think of me as being a good person that did his job and did it to the best of his ability. This is what I want my family. I got 2 daughters. I got 5 grandkids. 3 are here. 2 are up in New Jersey. My whole life since I've been retired is kind of revolved around those grandkids. I'd pick them up from school. They all play sports here, so I go to ball games all the time. I got one that's a senior at Greensboro College this year. He started 4 years out there in baseball. I got a granddaughter that's a softball player at NC State. She doesn't get to play a whole lot, but she loves it. And so I've spent more time with those kids. I thank God that I got to retire when I did. I was able to retire and was still in good enough health that I could spend that much time with them. And what I want them to remember me as being a good father, granddad, and a Christian. And I want my kids and grandkids, that's what I want for them. I want them to accept Christ. I was probably the best ping pong player that you ever saw. And
all I can say is, since we're on recording, I will admit that he did beat me in ping pong.
All the time. All the time.
But
go on and admit it. OC, if he was here, he'd be admitting the same thing.
But he is very lucky not to have ever played me in horseshoe, because he wouldn't have won a game.
I was good. I was good in horseshoes too.
That's what I'm saying. I'm messing with you. We hope you enjoyed watching these documentaries. It was our goal to share and preserve the memories of our retired Greensboro firefighters. It is our desire that these documentaries will inspire future generations to continue the brotherhood, sisterhood, and camaraderie while always striving for excellence in their careers. While fire apparatus, equipment, and technology have improved, several things will always remain the same. The courage and bravery it takes to mitigate natural and man-made disasters will always be a part of the job. Although our retirees are no longer a physical part of the GFD world, a giant piece of each retiree's memories have been shared with you today. These memories will be in their hearts and minds forever. A special thank you goes out to Captain Harold Haney for his many long hours of recording and editing. Thank you, Harold. A job well done.